Ceremonies will take place on Thursday in Kenya and Tanzania to mark the 10th anniversary of the devastating US embassy bombings, which killed 224 people and injured some 5,000 more, almost all of them Africans. But according to the US, many of those responsible continue to operate in the region. The point was brought forcefully home at the weekend when a top al-Qaeda suspect accused of being behind the attacks slipped through the fingers of the Kenyan police.
It was just before 11 in the morning when the truck pulled up at the rear entrance of the US Embassy in Nairobi. After a guard confronted the driver, the truck exploded. The devastation was vast. More than 200 were killed and 4,000 injured. 10 minutes later, there was a blast 400 miles away as another truck bomb struck in Dar es Salaam. 11 more died here. Simultaneous attacks would soon become known as a hallmark of al-Qaeda. These are some of the men held responsible by the US, but it soon became clear that behind them was a new enemy, an enemy who'd already warned of an upcoming attack just weeks earlier.
We believe that the worst thieves in the world today and the worst terrorists are the Americans. Nothing could stop them except perhaps retaliation in kind. We don't have to differentiate between military or civilian. As far as we're concerned, they are all targets. And this is what the fatwa says.
The embassy bombings were a clear warning of worse to come, but a warning that many say was not heeded. Cruise missiles were launched at al-Qaeda's camps in the aftermath, but al-Qaeda remained able to plan more devastation. So, 10 years after the embassy bombings and 7 after 9/11, is al-Qaeda still capable of planning such attacks? The bombings in Africa were planned from Afghanistan, but after 9/11, al-Qaeda's leadership fled over the border to Pakistan's tribal areas, and this is now the area that most worries the US as the place where the threat may emanate from. In this difficult, rugged terrain, militants, not the Pakistani state, are in control. Pakistan maintains that pressure has prevented al-Qaeda from operating freely, but the US wants more action to hunt for al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden, and fears that their sanctuary is growing. Leaders of the two countries met just last week.
First, we talked about the common threat we face, extremists who are very dangerous people. We talked about the need for us to make sure that the Afghan border is secure as best as possible. Pakistan's made a very strong commitment to that.
10 years ago, the embassy bombings were a shock to the US, the sign that a new conflict had begun. And yet it was still only after 9/11 that the US fully engaged in thinking about that new threat. Now the US is facing tough questions about just how much progress it's made and whether the threat remains.